One of the great things about Battletech, unless it happens to be your mech as a mech warrior, is the amount of damage, is the amount of punishment that these machines can take. Arms get blown off, you go to internals, you take engine hits, you take gyro hits. I mean, just imagine the sparks and the smoke and the explosions. Now, occasionally, and I'm gonna disbar and put aside like that lucky headshot on the way in, or you get hit and it goes to internals pretty early on and it happens to hit ammo and your mech explodes. I mean, that's part of the game. That's total warfare there. But I would say for the most part, if you're really, really stubborn and you're not playing in a campaign where you actually have to repair this stuff and you're a fanatical mech warrior, you're going to stick this out. The mechs can take a lot of punishment. A recent game, it still has me a little bit traumatized here. It's up on the blog. I run my Thunderbolt right up the center of the table. And I say, I crunch the numbers. I do the stats. I can take some damage on a T-Bolt. I can take some punishment. And while I don't have the heat sinks to really have massive, massive volleys of fire, if I run up there and force my opponent's hand, take some punishment, I've got dual Shrek PPC carriers in the back that are just going to unload every single turn. I've got a longbow. I've got some LRM support. So I'll run some interference for this Thunderbolt and see what it can do on there. Kind of tie down multiple mechs. So I tied down a Wolverine, a Grasshopper, a Shrek PPC carrier that my opponent had, an LRM carrier, and I think one other mech. But even if we put that mech aside, those units were all going on my T-Bolt, and it was working. I can't engage everything on here. I can't engage all those units, even if they're shooting back at me. So I picked the Wolverine. And in true Battletech fashion, I'm punching this Wolverine. I'm kicking this Wolverine. I'm firing everything at this Wolverine. Its arm is gone. It's in internals. It's smoking. I can't put this Wolverine down. I blow its leg off. It falls down. It props itself up with its arm. I'm stepping on it. Finally, I'm so enraged. I've got a Griffin in the back running interference with its long range. This is not optimal simply because the PPC and the LRM 10-pack on the Griffin is not suited to close range work. I run that thing up, and it starts just trying to stomp on this Wolverine. And I'm pretty sure I didn't even destroy it by the end of the game. It was just insane. So tactically, there comes a point in Battletech when you engage your opponent, whether it's 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, not that you ever want to be 3-to-1, but your mech takes a tremendous amount of punishment on there. You've lost a couple of weapons. Maybe you've got heat issues from an engine hit on there. Maybe some of your ammo reserves are dry, so you can't shoot anymore. You're not really able to put out consistent damage. What do? Now, narrative-wise, you'd probably withdraw. You'd probably surrender or power down simply because you don't want to join the ranks of the dispossessed. But let's say we're going to fight it on. At this point, what I try to do and what I would recommend tactically is how can you take this mech and force your opponent to continue sinking in game turns into it, much like this was happening with that Wolverine. So your mech's not going to be able to destroy other mechs or dish out damage, especially if it has its own weapon systems damaged. But if it can tie up 2 or 3 other mechs or 2 or 3 other units and start just soaking up damage for a turn or two, you can use that time and capitalize on it. An example from a game, I've got a longbow. It's parked in the back. I'm pumping out long-range missiles. I've got a ring of infantry surrounding it. It's taking some incoming fire. It takes a lot of damage. I'm pretty messed up on the front. I've lost an LRM 20-pack. Arm blew off. I think one of the 5s was malfunctioning, but I still had good ammo reserves on here. So I turn the mech around. Facing rear armor is now facing forward. I hadn't taken any damage on the rear armor. Flip the paddle around and just hang out there. I mean, at that point, I had more armor on the rear than I did on the front. So where can you move? Where can you go to have your opponent soak in more stuff? Another time, it was, now you're going to get massive modifiers for this. You're going to get curb stomped. You're going to get stepped on. People are going to be jumping on you. I had been surrounded by a ton of mechs. This was with a Battle Master. Despite having the lasers on the back, I was even winning initiative when I was surrounded. I've got 3 or 4 or 5 mechs. It's just like a dance line lined up behind me for rear armor, and there's nothing I could do about it. So what do? Lay down on my back. You could do that. Lay down on my back. Now you can't get rear armor. Of course, I'm prone, so there's modifiers to hit. It's easier to hit me, all this type of stuff. But at that point, I knew I was not going to be able to dish out the damage. So you cross that invisible line into make my opponent pay. You want to destroy this mech? You want to take me out? Then how can I get you to expend the maximum time, maximum ammo, maximum stuff in there to do it? Maybe it's turning a certain way. If I'm blasted on one side, maybe it's turning away. So I might not be able to fire the weapons on that side. But in blading or turning my body or torso twisting, I take the damaged part out of the angle of attack. Maybe it's backpedaling. Maybe it's moving forward. You'll know in that moment. But once you cross that line, look to hunker down, dig in, and make your opponent earn that kill. If you're not playing narrative, powering down, surrendering, or withdrawing off the table.